Lori and Charles Vallow were happily married and really seemed to be living a charmed life with their blended family. Both had prior marriages. In fact, Charles was number 4 for Lori. Charles' children were grown, so they were raising Lori's daughter Tylee, and together they adopted their great-nephew, little JJ. But by early 2019, things began to change. Lori's embrace of apocalyptic prophecies and self-proclaimed divinity cast a shadow over their marriage. She believed she was chosen to lead 144,000 souls in preparation for the Savior's imminent return. And she warned Charles that she would kill him if he impeded her sacred mission. Fearing for his life, Charles tried to get some help, citing Lori's threats and her erratic behavior. Lori then accused Charles of being possessed by dark spirits, branding him a zombie. The culmination of this turmoil was on July 11th, 2019. That's when Charles was shot and killed by Lori's brother, Alex Cox, who claimed self-defense. But prosecutors allege a sinister conspiracy, asserting that Lori and Alex orchestrated Charles' death to clear the path for her union with the doomsday prophet Chad Daybell. Lori denies the charges and is now representing herself in this high-stakes murder trial, and tonight we are live from the courthouse. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Closing Arguments. What a day inside the courtroom in Lori Daybell's latest murder trial. I want to take you back to that scene, right? When Charles was shot and killed, there were 5 people there that day. 5 people, all members of the family, right? Lori was there. Charles was there. Alex Cox, Lori's brother, Charles' brother-in-law, was there. Tylee, Lori's daughter, JJ, Lori and Charles' son. So 5 people were there when this happened. Now, obviously, Charles was shot and killed, so he is no longer alive. So now we're left with 4 people were there. JJ was murdered. JJ was murdered by his mother, and prosecutors believe with the help of Alex Cox, her brother. So JJ, his life is taken. So now, of the 5 people who were there at the time Charles Vallow was shot and killed, we're down to 3. Let's talk about Tylee. She was also murdered. Again, Lori convicted of her murder. Her remains burnt and put into a pet cemetery in Chad Daybell's backyard. Taken out. Probably the most important potential witness to all of this. But the witness is dead, and the person on trial for murder is the one responsible for murdering that witness. So now, from the 5 people who were there in this, as Lori called it, family tragedy, we're down to 2 that are left. Alex Cox suddenly died on the toilet. All these people dying at young ages, it's unreal. This one, they're calling it natural causes. I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm not buying that. I'm just not. I just don't think his death was investigated like a homicide. Because, things happen, you do the autopsy, oh, okay, but what caused that? Like, how did that happen in this individual? And the timing of it was so significant. The day that they're digging up Tammy Daybell's body, that Alex Cox is suddenly gone as well. So now, for the shooting death of Charles Vallow, when there were 5 people there that day, all alive in the morning, only 1 is still alive. And that's Lori Daybell, the accused murderer. Think about that. And she got up in that courtroom and said, this was a family tragedy, the death of my husband. The problem is, all that I just told you, I don't know how much this jury's going to know about that. They're not getting the whole picture. They're not getting the whole story. What they get is what's presented inside that courtroom in Arizona. And it's much more narrowly focused than the other trial against Lori Daybell and the trial against Chad. This is really about what happened that day to Charles. So the jury might be wondering, all these people, why is no one testifying? Why isn't anyone else coming in to tell us what happened? There were a whole bunch of people there. Well, they're not, 'cause they're all dead. 2 of them at the hands of Lori. Potentially a third if she's convicted here. So today, Lori Daybell still representing herself. And this was quite a moment. This was an unexpected moment. A woman gets on the stand named Nancy Jo Hancock, who apparently dated Charles Vallow. They met on some app and then went on their first date the day or the night before Charles is shot and killed. She came into the courtroom and testified about what she knew, but then she got cross-examined by Lori. And wow, some fire in the courtroom. Lori Daybell kind of like, all of a sudden, like the fangs are coming out and she's going after this woman like she did something wrong. She met a man on a dating app and went on a date with him. But it was an interesting moment in how will the jury take this? How will they interpret this? Let's take a look.
You stated that your husband, or my husband, told you that he was going through a divorce. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And did you have any way to verify that?
No, I didn't try to verify that.
Okay. So did it surprise you later to find out that we were not in the process of a divorce?
Charles was in the process of a divorce.
He was not in the process of a divorce. Did it surprise you to find that out? You've seen it all on TV where we're not getting divorced.
Okay.
So on the website that you met him, did he say he was divorced?
I'm not certain.
Would you have gone on a date with him if he would have said he was married?
If I would have realized how married he still was, maybe not. But I just met for dinner. I wasn't sleeping with him or anything.
Do you go on dates with married men? Naturally?
Argumentative. I'm going to also object under 611 for harassment.
All right. I'll sustain the objection.
Your Honor, do I not have a right to cross-examine this witness for what she has already testified to?
You can cross-examine her about what she's testified to.
So you did go on a date with married men,
I went on a date with Charles.
but you did not know he was married.
I knew his divorce was not final.
His divorce was not started.
Unbelievable. Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft, joining us live from Arizona tonight. Kelly, unexpected witness from my perspective. I mean, we've heard a lot through the years. I never heard anything about this date that Charles went on. What can you tell us about Nancy Jo Hancock?
Good evening to you, Vinnie. Yeah, you're not the only one that was surprised. Lori's family, they were surprised as well. So we started to hear some rumblings on Monday that Charles Vallow had been dating. And so I had talked with some of Lori's family members, and they said they had no idea that Charles had been dating. And so then, of course, today is the day we see this woman walk into the courtroom and take the stand. And you could feel the tension. I mean, obviously, especially during that cross-examination that Lori was performing with the woman on the stand, Nancy Jo Hancock. Direct examination, she was getting out information. The prosecutor was getting out information from Nancy as to how she met Charles. She was on a dating site, and they conversed for hours. She said that Charles was gregarious, that he was clever, that they had great banter together. They would talk on the phone for 3 hours. They would send numerous text messages to one another. Why don't we go ahead and listen to a little bit of her testimony, and I believe this is some of the cross-examination that Lori was conducting.
How many times did you get to meet him in person?
Just once.
What day was that?
He was flying in from Houston, and we had arranged to go to dinner that night. His plane was delayed, and so I met him that night on the 10th of July.
July 10th, was that 2019?
Correct. Charles was ecstatic to see JJ. He was coming to see JJ, so excited to take him to school the next morning. He was also coming to look for a place to live. He had an appointment to meet a realtor friend after he had taken JJ to school. And then he was also supposed to meet with Lori's brother, Adam.
So you and Charles have this evening on the 10th. Were you going to meet again?
Yeah, we were supposed to meet up in the late afternoon after he got through with the things that I just said.
So are you trying to tell me and this jury that you went on one date with my husband and he told you all the details of our lives?
I'm telling you the truth, and that's what I know.
So you spent your whole date getting to know each other, talking about me?
Don't flatter yourself. No, we did not spend the whole time talking about you.
And when she said that, don't flatter yourself, the people that were inside the gallery watching just looked at one another as if, oh, wow, I can't believe that that woman just responded in that way after she was saying that she knew so much about Lori. I watched the jurors as well during that exchange, you know, especially when they were asking her, Lori was asking her, do you typically date married men? They were jotting down notes, Vinnie. So they were definitely interested in what the woman had to say. I'm not too certain that they felt that she had as much maybe credibility as the prosecutor was hoping for, because Lori was doing a good job getting some information out there. I will say the jury did have one question for Nancy on the stand. They asked her if Charles ever indicated to her or verbally expressed to her that he was under stress. She did respond yes. She started to go on more. The judge stopped her. Another observation is before the jurors had the question, the judge asked the jurors if they had any questions, and then the woman, Nancy, appeared startled inside the courtroom, and she said, oh, the jury gets to ask questions as well? And the judge told her yes, and she said, ah. So that was interesting.
I love when the jury asks questions. It gives you some insight into what they're thinking, and it also answers questions that they need answered. They're the ones that have to figure this whole thing out. So give me your analysis. In watching it is one thing, being in the courtroom is another thing. I felt like Lori was acting like a jealous person. My husband, you're dating my husband. They're living separately. She left him. He had filed divorce once, took it back. They were not together, but she seems to be like, you are a scoundrel. Nancy Jo, you are a terrible woman. How did it play inside the courtroom on that issue?
That's exactly how it played inside the courtroom, Vinnie. You could feel it. I mean, you could feel it. I couldn't wait for more, because then we took that lunch break. And, you know, the judge had warned Lori about opening up the door to some questions that Lori wanted to ask her. And then after lunch, she decided not to follow through with some of those questions. But you could feel that inside the courtroom. She was coming across that way. And frankly, I will say from watching the jurors, it wasn't as if they were looking at Lori, because again, they don't know the whole background.
They don't know the whole story.
The situation.
They don't know the story.
They are looking at it as a woman. My IFB just fell out. They are looking at it as a woman who, maybe a married woman. She was married to this man who is the victim in this case, and then all of a sudden now he's shot and killed, and here's this woman that was dating her husband. And so, yeah, it was interesting to watch, to say the least. Vinnie, I'm going to tell you, if you're going to ask me a question, I'm trying to get my IFB back in because it fell out.
All right, I think she's going to get her device back into her ear so she can hear us. This is fascinating, folks. This is absolutely, this was unexpected. Nobody knew about this. Like, Lori's family didn't know about this. No one knew about this. And we're at a point now where, you know, a trial that I thought was very predictable has become very unpredictable. Any other witnesses today, Kelly?
Yes, there were some other witnesses today. The first one out of the gates was Detective Coons. So Lori had the cross-examination of him, asking him a series of questions about the items of clothing that Charles was wearing. Also, a really good witness ended the day. This was Christina Atwood, and she got out information that it was after a fast. So she was involved in a meeting with Lori as well as Alex Cox. They had fasted. This was a whole situation where Lori had been telling them that she felt that Charles was possessed. And she said that Alex made a comment as the fast was ending and then they were beginning to eat, saying that he wished he could just kill Charles. Let's go ahead and listen to some of that testimony.
Was there anything that Lori said at this meeting in February-ish of 2019 that she said about Charles that stood out to you?
She was concerned about dark spirits plaguing him.
So the prosecutor was able to get out that important information that Alex Cox had mentioned previously, that he wanted to kill Charles Vallow, that Lori had told her that she had crushed up some of JJ's medication and given it to her husband, Charles. So you could tell the jurors during that testimony, they were really jotting notes at that time, because now they're hearing a woman who was standing up there crying during her opening statement, talking about this family tragedy. Today, now they're hearing from a friend of Lori on the stand under oath that Lori had previously indicated to her that she was drugging her husband.
Wow. Unreal. Kelly Craft live in Maricopa County. Thank you so much, Kelly. Let's bring in our live think tank in studio tonight. Criminal defense attorney, entertainment attorney, former assistant state attorney in Miami-Dade County, and former assistant DA in Atlanta. Long history here. Daryl Cohen is with us. Criminal defense attorney and law professor Meg Strickler, and criminal defense attorney Eklund Mercy. What did you think? So of this cross-examination going after this woman, I felt like from where I was sitting, it may be very different than, because I know too much. We all know too much about her. Do you think she can potentially be effective in front of this jury in going after this woman, calling her someone who dates my married husband?
I can't believe she would do such a dastardly thing. I think the chances are 1 in 10 billion that she's going to be successful, maybe more.
Okay, how do you think that went today,
It didn't go. You asked how it went, it didn't go. It just...
Because remember, the jury doesn't know what we know.
But she's not an effective lawyer because she's not a lawyer, number one. Number two, when she's saying my husband, she's already putting her emotions into this whole storyline, which completely kills the whole purpose. She's making herself look bad. I know that's not something we're surprised by, but the jury doesn't know the whole story, as you just discussed. She's lost points in front of the jury, 100%.
Eklund, here's the way I looked at it. I was like, she has some decent facts here that Charles is on a date. Charles is her villain in this case. In her opening statement, she made Charles the villain, yet here, it seemed like she wanted to make this woman who met Charles on a dating app, on a LDS dating app, the villain. Is that going too far? Should she have maybe bonded with her and say, and Charles didn't tell you we were still married? And oh my goodness, so Charles is trying to date you while he's married? Like, she didn't do that. She attacked that woman.
Yeah. She is diabolical, I believe, personally, because remember, she was close to narcoleptic in her first trial, and now she is pro se in this trial. And with that being said, I do believe that it's manipulative because she got to do jury selection. So she is able to pick who she wants.
All men, just about all men.
And there is a reason for that. I think that she is playing a completely different game than anybody else is. I think that she is going to she taps who she wants to tap on that jury, and she is making the play to them specifically.
It's unbelievable. All right, Think Tank staying with us. When we come back, we've got more from Maricopa County, Arizona. This courthouse is legendary on Court TV. So many big cases, including another blonde-haired woman. Remember her? What was her name? Jodi Arias was convicted in that building. And we'll do that plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates. Next week, it starts all over again. The retrial of the century, Massachusetts versus Karen Reed. And tonight, we take a look at the biggest problems the prosecution has in this epic redo.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
Doomsday cult mom is now lawyer Lori.
She's representing herself.
On charges of conspiring to murder her fourth husband.
She said, I can murder you now.
The Cult Mom Conspiracy Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
Lori's brother, Alex. And you're going to hear about Alex Cox. Alex Cox was Lori's protector. Alex Cox would do anything and everything to protect, aid, and assist Lori Vallow in whatever her endeavors, without unbridled question. Anything.
That's Chad Daybell's attorney, John Pryor, talking about Alex Cox and his role in Lori's life as her protector. I want to take a look at the family tree because you have to get the big picture. We got to go through the big picture to fully understand Alex Cox and what he has done here. We begin with Lori Daybell, right? So she's now Lori Daybell, but she was at one time Lori Vallow, married to Charles Vallow. And of her 5 husbands, that's the one she was married to the longest. Now, 2 of their children are J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. Tylee Ryan from a prior marriage, J.J. an adopted child of theirs, actually their great-nephew who they ended up adopting. Then you have Lori's brother, Alex Cox. She has other siblings as well. Charles is shot and killed by Alex Cox on July 11th, 2019. Lori is having an affair with the so-called doomsday prophet, Chad Daybell. Chad Daybell is married to Tammy Daybell. So as you can see, as they're having this affair, they're both married, but now Charles is gone. Tammy Daybell is found dead in her home in Salem, Idaho, October 19th, 2019. Cause of death, asphyxiation. So with 2 spouses out of the way, now Lori and the prophet are together. Tylee and JJ disappear in the fall of 2019, and their remains are found and discovered on Chad's property in June of 2020. And then Alex Cox dies on the toilet mysteriously, December of 2019. Look at all that death. Look at how young all these people are. Let's bring in our think tank. Daryl Cohen, Meg Strickler, Eklund Mercy, still with us. A lot of dead people. So I think the question is, for this trial, which would be very helpful, I think, for the jury, is like, who else did Alex Cox kill, right? Who else's life did he take? Let's take a listen to one of the deputies from Fremont County talking about the night that Chad's wife, Tammy Daybell, died and where Alex Cox was that night.
The device that was associated with Alex Cox and Homer J. Maximus, and looking through the data, the night of October 18th, 2019, that device was at the Salem Church at 10:04 that night, or 10:05 p.m.
Sometime just after 10?
Correct.
Do you know how long the device showed as being located in that vicinity?
And correctional time, I believe it was 10:07 p.m. And it showed him there until 10:45 p.m.
And when we're talking about a geofence warrant, do you know what type of data they're looking at as far as placing a device there?
I believe that is off Wi-Fi and GPS.
So with the geofence, it's located there until 10:45 p.m. of October 18th, correct?
Correct.
Did you learn anything else in relation to that device as far as any later time that night?
That device shuts off or goes dormant and is no longer there. And it is later picked up at 11:53, roughly 7 miles south of the church.
Alex Cox is wandering around Tammy's property and Chad's property the night that she tragically dies, right? In all this. So, Daryl, I wish the jury knew this. Like, Alex Cox basically is a potential serial killer. Yet the jury just sees him as a guy with a little boo-boo on the back of his head, and his sister talking about how he was saving the family from this evil Charles Vallow.
Vinny, you can't make this up. If Hollywood existed, whoever the writer or writers were, they couldn't make this up. Go back to the old days of soap operas. He's got the bad head, he's got this, he's got that. I think the jury probably knows more than we think because they weren't preempted from knowing what happened in previous trial. And even though they can't officially admit it, what do you bet they know?
You think they know a little bit?
The judge admonishes them at the end of the night, as you know, don't go home and look at social media. I mean, that's exactly what he says every night. And how do you
The thing is, if you
not?
went on social media about this case, it would take you like 8 weeks of trying to figure out what
beyond
happened
all rabbit
here.
holes, yes.
There's a lot of rabbit holes, there's a lot of deep, but at the end of the day, so we've got Alex Cox there when Tammy dies. Take a listen now to the testimony of two witnesses from a trial talking about when JJ disappeared, because we know his remains were found in Chad's backyard, but here's what's happening when he disappears.
I just went to say goodbye to Lori and JJ. And Lori was in the kitchen and she was a little dramatic. She explained that he climbed up on the cabinets in the fridge and got on top of the upper cabinets. And she had a picture of Christ on the upper cabinet. And he said that he went up there and pushed that down. And I just said, well, we're leaving. I'd like to say goodbye to JJ. And she said, oh, he was out of control. And I had to have Alex come and get him.
The conclusion at the end of this comparison was an identification to the card bearing the name Alexander Cox to number 5, meaning the right little finger.
And again, when it says item 11, it's referring to the black plastic that JJ's body was found in.
Yes.
Alex Cox's fingerprint on the bag that JJ's buried in. Lori's talking about him being a zombie. There's a pattern here. This is like a pattern of conduct. I just feel like this jury should be getting the full story, Eklund.
The reason why the most important part of a trial is jury selection, right? But understand that although we're interested in it, jurors aren't people who automatically watch court TV, automatically watch these things, are automatically interested in this particular case.
So you think there's a chance that they don't know? But I think they should know. This is all relevant. Like Alex Cox, if he's killing all these people, and Lori, and they're all dying after Lori says that they're zombies, that's a pattern.
But that's why she's picking them. That's why you get to pick your juror. You get to ask them questions. And the issue is like all she needs is one. That's all she needs. And she is able to talk to them every single day. She's able to have eye contact with people. She's able to have a communication.
There's more of a chance for bonding in this one because she's speaking. She's not just sitting there silently. Okay, let's talk about the death of Tylee, Daryl. Now, at the time, Alex is neighbors. They're in the same apartment complex with Lori, but they're not in the same apartment. So he's not usually at her apartment, especially at nighttime. But the last night that Tylee's seen, apparently he is there. Take a listen.
They seem to put the device in Unit 175.
And again, this was the only time in September that you noticed that device in 175 in those early morning hours?
Yes, except for on September 30th, there was one occasion where it stayed the night in 175 on the night of September 30th. So beginning at almost approximately at 9 o'clock, it seems to leave 565 Pioneer Road, number 107, and moves at driving speed north to US. It gets on US 20, and it continues towards an address of 202 North, 1900 East in Rexburg, Idaho.
And did you determine who that address is associated with?
Yes, the 202 North, 1900 East in Rexburg was the residence of Chad Daybell at that time. The first data point that we got at 921 is actually behind the main residence at the Daybell property, back on the rear of the property. And that is a GPS coordinate with a 6-meter radius. As best I could determine, it seems like the device is leaving that area of the residence at approximately 11:45.
That's where that's where Tylee's body, her remains were found after they were being burnt in Chad Daybell's backyard. Daryl, do you believe Alex Cox is responsible for all of this? And should the jury, would it be fair for the jury to know that he has taken out 3 other members of this family?
I think if the jury can find out through the appropriate way in court, yes, the jury should know. But I can assure you that 1 or more members of the jury already know that, whether they're looking at social media, whether they looked at it before, they're going to know. But keep in mind, if our defendant is not convicted, she's still been convicted. She's still going to spend the rest of her life in prison. So this is sort of an extra bite at the apple, if you will.
Yeah, I just like to see justice for everyone. Charles deserves justice.
Absolutely.
In this case, I believe. Okay, Think Tank staying with us. When we come back, it's going to be the biggest trial of the year. Daybell is huge. Karen Reed is big. This is the biggest one of 2025, and they were back in court in Idaho. The latest next.
And tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night and she not wake me up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night.
That's a piece of the 911 call. The 911 call for the mass murder of these 4 students from the University of Idaho, Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. Here they are, obviously, enjoying themselves, living their lives, and those lives were taken by a killer, a murderer, a cold-blooded killer. This was not anyone that they knew. There was no connection. Even if you don't believe it's the person who's been accused, there is no evidence that anyone connected to them had anything to do with this. So now they're getting ready for this trial. It's going to happen in August. So this spring, we are busy with these 2 big trials that'll take us probably until June. July, you have a month to catch your breath, and then in August, back to another huge case. I want you to take a listen to Ann Taylor, the attorney for the accused mass murderer, talking about that word murderer, whether or not you can call an accused murderer in a murder trial.
This is not a motion to ask the state not to use the term murder. That's going to come out when the court reads to the jury the charging document. That's going to come out in jury instructions. This motion is about the state, through its witnesses, labeling Mr. Kohberger. That invades the province of the jury. Mr. Kohberger sits here today. He's innocent, and it's up to the state to bring evidence and a jury to decide if that's different. This motion is really spelled out in Dr. John Eden's affidavit when he talks about the unreliability of tests that might label somebody in that particular way and the danger of having that label applied to somebody. If that's allowed to happen, then Mr. Kohberger is colored with an opinion or a way the jury will view him that is unfair. And our request is that the court not allow the state to label him in testimony as a psychopath or a sociopath.
I don't know. I think the jury will figure it out for themselves. I don't think they need any help. Still with us, Daryl Cohen, Meg Strickler, and Eklund Mercy. What was this motion all about, Meg?
It's a motion to eliminate to make sure that certain testimony is barred from being discussed. And you know what? Go ahead and try. Like you just stated, the whole storyline is so awful that even if we don't use the words murderer, sociopath, or psychopath, the jurors are all going to think that. It's a horrific
I don't know who would
storyline.
testify to that. Like, what? I don't know who she's talking about.
Well, does it matter if the testimony is what it is? You label it anything you want to label it, but the testimony of what he did, the jury makes that decision based upon what they heard or didn't hear.
Exactly.
Well, and in the closing arguments, are prosecutors allowed to say they're a murderer? We've proven that he's a murderer?
I think
that he murdered 4 people in cold blood? Isn't that the point of the trial?
I think for the purposes of closing, it's different.
Okay.
As you're doing your summation, and regularly we don't object during closing. I think that she did what she had to do. I've done it, in which you just want to make sure that you've put your client in the best position. Instead of calling him murder, you are innocent until proven otherwise. So as of right now, he is the defendant and not a murderer.
Yeah, that's what I always called him, the defendant, the accused. Never use their name. Take a listen. Ann Taylor also concerned about the way he sits in court. This one was strange.
It's really important to make a distinction between things that exist in this case. Mr. Kohberger's autism, something that he didn't ask for. It's a condition that he has, and it'll need to be addressed, but also to prevent the state from using his characteristics of autism as aggravating evidence against him. The state has, and the court has, our expert analysis from Dr. Orr that talks about how autism manifests in Bryan, the things that people might see. And these are things that we've read a little bit about in the media over the course of the case. Bryan's physical body is more stoic, how he sits in one place. And he will look for a long time. Sometimes he'll hold his hands in a rigid position, and that means nothing. That's just how Bryan is. We seek to prevent the state from using those kind of characteristics against Bryan.
The state has no plans whatsoever to use the autism during the penalty phase as any kind of aggravation whatsoever. There is no plan to put on students from the university to talk about their personal views of this individual. To be quite frank, if we get to a penalty phase, we have a lot better aggravating evidence than the fact that he has level 1 autism.
The extent of my ruling is simply that the state should not make the general argument that somehow the diagnosis is an aggravating factor.
Like, who would do that? No one would do that. Let's bring back our think tank. This is an argument about nothing. That's weird.
That's confusing to me. I don't understand.
It's very confusing.
I get it. So here's the thing.
Being born with autism is not an aggravating factor, it's a mitigating factor.
The issue is that you're assuming, you can't assume that every prosecutor is going to go by the rules. You cannot assume that every prosecutor isn't going to want to really go after his rigidity. Like, he is very different. He is very stoic, and he won't have the typical reactions to things like other people. Like, you're going to see certain things, and he's not going to be emotional.
Will the defense attorney be able to address that and tell the jury, ladies and gentlemen, during the course of this trial, you're going to notice that my client is very awkward.
What does it matter if the jury watches that man on trial for murder?
For 3 months.
Murder.
They'll be watching him.
Only 3 months, could be more. They're going to base their evidence, base their verdict on the evidence or the lack of evidence. And clearly, the way a person who is on trial walks, talks, what his or her body language is, in this case his, the way their facial expressions are, that makes a difference, because juries look at the defendant to see what he, in
So
this
are they going to
case...
explain it?
No.
Like, they're saying the prosecutor can't talk about it, but they can talk about it?
No, I think they shouldn't talk about it. They just leave it be, and just like Daryl said, the facts of the case are the most harsh part of this case. They'll make their decisions on that, not the fact that he's doing this, or staring too long, and those kinds of things. Is there an issue when our defendants are looked at? Absolutely. And there is a factor in that when we're deciding a case, if I was a juror. But
And
in
they're
this
all,
case,
they're all
so
given the
much.
opportunity to testify, you know.
Yes.
So they don't have to just sit there. They can get up there and tell their story if they want, especially the ones who are innocent. I think you should definitely get up on the stand and tell us how innocent you are. Daryl Cohen, Meg Strickler, Eckler Mercy, thank you so much. Big programming note for you. This Sunday, Court TV is bringing you the 2-hour Season 2 premiere of Interview with a Killer. Here's a preview.
I'm confessing to a murder on camera.
We're here to try and understand the mindsets behind your actions in this case. It sounds like you lost control of yourself.
Not at all. No, not at all. I'm done with this interview.
That's so conniving. Do you understand that?
I'm your worst nightmare, David.
Interview with a Killer, a special 2-hour season premiere, Sunday, 8 Eastern and Pacific, only on Court TV.
Amazing show. And Friday night, David Scott, the host, will join me live to tell us more about an Interview with a Killer Season 2. You don't want to miss it. When we come back, I will reveal something else you need to know tonight, plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, why did a world-renowned surgeon and former Olympic athlete strangle his wife? His name is Ingolf Harry Turk, and he told his story on the witness stand. And tonight, we take a closer look at his body language. Was he telling the truth?
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, coming up next, only on Court TV.
What did you think when the media dubbed you the National Forest serial killer?
I think I prefer the Beast of Blood Mountain.
Interview with a Killer, new season premieres Sunday at 8, only on Court TV.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board. Karen Reed denied by the U.S. Supreme Court. Denied a delay in her trial. She was making an emergency request to delay the murder trial while the U.S. Supreme Court reviews her appeal on double jeopardy grounds from that controversial verdict in the first trial. That's denied the delay, so the case will go forward, and things are moving, folks. They've got 15 of 16 jurors, so everyone believes that this trial will begin on Tuesday. Tuesday, not Monday's Patriot Day up in Massachusetts. Nobody works. Everything's closed. They have the marathon, etc. But Tuesday, that trial should begin. Right now, though, folks, I need you to take a look at your TV screens. We have a missing child who needs your help. This is Brayden Lee Tichota, missing since March 25th out of Kansas City, Kansas, just 14 years old. Just 14. If you see Brayden, pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference. 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or the Kansas City Police Department in Kansas. That number's on your screen. Let's get Brayden to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.